In 2016, a new TV show hit the digital airwaves and needed a podcast dedicated to chronicling its adventures. An elite team has been assembled for this task. Unfortunately, the world's listeners have not heard of this Wonder Twin duo. And although they may not be known now, in the future they will be referred to as tomorrow's legends.
Well, Harley, we are back in the future.
Back in the future?
Back in the future, isn't it 2147 right now?
Oh, yeah. I can't keep track of when we were in the past and when we were in the future. It's getting confusing.
Well, and even with this episode, it went from the future and flashed back to way in the past. So, yeah, I get the confusion.
Yeah. No wonder I'm confused. I can't keep track of it all.
Oh, jeez. Well, welcome everybody to Legends of Tomorrow. This is the Tomorrow's Legend podcast, Season 1, Episode 10, titled Progeny. How you doing, Harley?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, too.
Excellent.
Shall we see if we can do something out of the ordinary for ourselves and get this podcast under an hour?
Yes. I will be shocked if we can do that, but we will. We will endeavor to make it just a little bit shorter.
Yes, so we do apologize for the last couple of long ones, guys, although nobody has sent in any complaints.
No hate mail.
No hate mail, so I don't know. Let us know, guys. I mean, we do try to keep it short as we get so carried away. We're loving what we're doing, and yeah.
Yeah, and we can keep those emails confidential. We won't read those ones on the air. So if you're really feeling that it's long and you want to let us know, you can just send us a discreet email.
Exactly.
That we won't share. We won't call you out on the air. It'll be okay. We just need to know.
There we go. And we're going to try something new that we have not done yet. 10 episodes in. We have got ratings this time.
Yay! We remembered.
So what's your rating, Harley?
I gave it 7 edible complexes.
Huh?
This ties into Savage's reference to Oedipus Rex, which is a pretty famous Greek play.
Ah, okay.
We'll get into that a little bit more, but an Oedipal complex is basically the Freudian version of it's complicated, but it's really not. It's just confusing. But
even the spelling, I'm looking at it on our show notes here, and the spelling is throwing me off. On the Odai, I can't even say it. It's messed me up. All right, 7, eh? 7 out of 10.
Or Latin, I guess that's Latin technically. Oedipus Rex.
Okay. Well, my rating is 8 out of 10. Wait, is this an Iron Man movie? I can't even say this word. Autonomous? No, what am I saying?
Autonomous.
Autonomous suits. Let me try that again. 8 out of 10. Wait, is this an Iron Man movie? Autonomous suits.
That's a pretty great rating because I was like, I can't tell if this feels more like Iron Man or iRobot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how'd you feel about this episode overall?
Okay, I liked the episode. I thought it was pretty solid. Giving it a rating of 7, I would say it's definitely not one of my favorites, but I liked it better than Night of the Hawk, which has been my least favorite, and that one I probably would have ranked closer to a 6.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea. But I thought it was also more of a development episode, which, we need. You gotta have those. It moved the plot along. But I felt like it was a lot of setback for our team. And after kind of mulling it over, watching it twice, thinking about it, reading some stuff that people have been posting on Facebook, I think I've kind of wrapped my brain around it a little bit more, and I kind of understand why, and I think, our conversation will kind of help that as well. But I couldn't get over that at the end of the episode. I was like, oh, so we did all this just to fail. Even though we fail every time, but it was a different type of failure.
Okay.
But anyway.
Cool. Yeah, well, hopefully as we get into discussion, that'll come to light a little bit more.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. How'd you feel about it?
I actually thought it was a really good episode. I mean, I rated it 1 notch higher than you. I thought all around it was a really great episode right up until the last 7-ish minutes. But that's my nitpick, so we'll get to that.
Okay.
But in hindsight, it's fantastic, story-driven episode, really good dialogue between all the characters.
Yes.
Fantastic acting. I think everyone's performances were great. There was emotion, there was drama, and I think it just proved that this show has found its groove and has settled in with its cast.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
It's feeling like it's comfortable with itself now, so I'm happy. And to go with your point too, yeah, the music was absolutely fantastic. It really drove the emotion through. They did a good job with that.
I did forget to mention that, but some of the scoring, it was very well done and well placed. I really enjoyed it.
Right, exactly. So now, before we get on to our episode dialogue, we do have a little bit of pre-show feedback, and it comes in the form of voicemails. We got 3, but 2 of them were from one person. They're just little side notes, so we will say those for you now. Let's do, everybody's changing. You and me are changing things up this week, and Miss Patty Spivot is also changing things up. Instead of an extremely long email, she sent us a pair of voicemails, and we were joking pre-show, like, uh-oh, are they going to be as long as her emails? And what comment did you make regarding her and me? It was kind of funny.
That your feedback styles are pretty similar. You call in and leave 40-minute voicemails, and she just writes really long emails. It's kind of funny.
Wait, 40 minutes? It is jumping up every single time.
I have to tease you about that. It just increases every time we talk about it. So we're going to get you up to 2 hours before the end of the season.
All right. Well, not in hindsight, but looking at it, we had to check because we were joking, and her voicemails are actually only a minute and a bit long, so not too bad at all.
Perfect length.
So we'll play those right now for you. These 2 voicemails are from Patty Spivot.
Hey, Flash and Harley, it is Lisa, aka Patty Spivot. Just wanted to call in and tell you guys how much I'm loving the podcast, and don't worry about how long they are, honestly. We barely notice. The time just flies by. But if you want to, rename them Megapods or, Podathons or something so we know what we're in for, we can plan accordingly, that'd be cool. I just wanted to also observe how much it's really, really cool how you guys have all the little insights about the possible future characters, like when you were talking about Cord Industries being shown here and there in the episodes. It really is, it illustrates how thought out the characters are and how thought out the storylines are and how interwoven they all are. And when you guys talk about the DC universe, it's really encompasses all of them, and it's really, really cool how you guys kind of point out that, hey, this was in that episode, so maybe that character is going to show up in the future. So it's kind of fun to watch for that and listen to you guys do that. The last thing is, I'm not sure that Kronos and Heatwave are the same person. Kronos showed up at the beginning, and Rip seemed to kind of know who he was and have some familiarity with him as a bounty hunter from before. So I kind of wonder if maybe there's lots of bounty hunters and maybe they just all have the same outfit, and maybe Heatwave took over from Kronos once he had the falling out with Captain Cold. I don't know. I feel like they might still be 2 people. So I just wanted your thoughts on that. Other than that, I think I'm done. Keep up the good work, and I can't wait to see what you guys have for us this week. Talk to you soon.
And that's her first one. So let's respond to that before we continue on to the second one.
Okay.
It's neat listening to her understand, she's getting a grasp on the DC universe, because she does not have a comic book background and did not know much at all about these universes until being with me, and she, learning all this information. I kind of dump it on her in bucket loads sometimes, but it's pretty cool that she's getting a grasp on that. So it's neat to hear that we're helping at least one listener. We're helping explain things in their understanding. So
yeah, I agree. I like that, and also I think this week's episode might help to answer her comments a little bit about her thoughts on Kronos and Rory, because I feel like they more definitively cement that he's the same person in this episode, or at least I felt like they did, but we can get more into that later.
Yeah, she does, if you think about just last week's episode, she does bring up a very valid point that, because I think we questioned it too, that it could be, there's a whole troop of bounty hunters, and why would they just have one? The Time Masters maybe have trained 100 bounty hunters, and they have sent them all throughout the galaxy, throughout different time periods, all with different tasks.
I mean, I think that's definitely true, that they're definitely doing that, but I also think that they picked him specifically to hunt down this team because of his connection to the team, and especially since he makes the mention of how much that Snart had lost track of time, because basically that means that Rory had all of those lifetimes to basically live out, or so he says, once the Time Masters found him. And plus, once he gets to the vanishing point, the time is different, so I think that plays into it as well. So in a way, he is a different person, but I still think he is physically the same person, but mentally that is definitely debatable. He is not the same Mick Rory that disappeared.
Well, I guess we'll find out as the show goes. As we go through this episode, like you said, it might come into play a little bit more, but I didn't feel that quite yet. I think there is still a chance. But, I mean, I was of the belief that he is Kronos, so we'll see. I mean, if they might surprise us and all of a sudden Kronos pops in, he catches up to them as well, and now we've got two, and
that would be mind-blowing.
Yeah, that would be mind-blowing. That would be kind of cool. All right, so let's get into our second voicemail.
Oh, and one more thing I forgot about. I totally did not see it coming when Mick Rory took his mask off. I loved that. That was such an awesome twist. And it's really cool to see these two back together again. They're kind of my favorite little storyline of the season so far. And watching Captain Cold go from shock to terror when Mick was threatening his sister, to anger, to survival mode, and then sort of falling back into the banter between Heatwave and Captain Cold, trying to connect with his former partner and kind of survive the situation. That was my favorite scenes of the whole show, so I love that part. And I just wanted to add that, so okay, bye.
All right, well, there we go. There's her second voicemail. I think a lot of people are feeling the same, that because we even discussed it, that it's good to have him back.
Yeah, it is. And
yeah, the shock. I mean, the massive shock and reveal when he took his mask off, it fooled all of us. None of us saw that coming. And yeah,
nope.
we're right there with you with the surprise of that, and then all the emotion that followed afterwards, watching Snart deal with it in his. Yeah, it was amazing.
It was. It was good.
Well, thank you, Miss Patty Spivet, for your two voicemails. It's awesome to hear you.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. It was great to hear your voice, and it was, short and sweet. I'm just kidding. We love your emails. Keep them coming, please. Keep them coming. Voicemails are good too, though.
Okay, so now we've got one from our friend Jeremy down in Australia. He's been gone for a little bit, so it's nice to have him back. He said he messaged me saying he's all caught up, good to go. So let's check out what he has to say.
Awesome.
Hi there from Jeremy in Melbourne, Australia, with some belated feedback from last night's episode. I haven't had a chance to watch the episode you're recording about tonight, but thought I might offer my 2 cents worth on last week's show. Being a weekly show about time travel gives a number of challenges. Legends of Tomorrow is a bit lighter than Arrow, and so far I'm treating it more like a series of self-contained bottle episodes rather than one long serialised show. So, when they go and do something different, like abandon some team members in a certain setting, on this occasion for 2 years, I find that very interesting. This means that Roy and Kendra have had 2 years of playing husband and wife, 2 years of falling in love with each other, and 2 years away from being in a constant saving the world mode, and having aged 2 years in an instant compared to the non-abandoned team members. Again, I haven't seen the next episode, but I really hope there's some kind of consequence from this 2-year differential between the team members. I'm really happy the show's writers explored this kind of time travel anomaly and hope they can continue to surprise rather than just play dress-ups each week and or deal with almost token differences like clothing, sexism and racism of the different time periods. But I'm back on board with this show and look forward to being surprised each week. Thanks again for your great podcast, Jess and Martin.
Well, first off, Jeremy, it is so good to have you back, and thanks for calling in. I also wanted to add that you emailed us twice, once with the voicemail attached and then once without. You wanted to send in the transcript of it. because you said something along the lines, just in case we don't want to play it and we'd rather read it out, you have to know that there is no way in any timeline we're not going to play your voicemail, because we love to hear the sound of your voice.
Yes, that's very true. We love your accent. So there's pretty much no way your voicemail is not making it. Although I take that back. If you send us a 10-minute voicemail, we probably would only play a snippet of it. But
We'll have to chop it up. But anyway.
Yeah.
We love hearing from you, so thanks for that. Now, on to what you said, man, you brought up something I did not even think of, and Harley, we didn't even talk about it, was the fact that Ray and Kendra did age 2 years.
That's true.
And the rest of the team didn't, because for them it was just an instant. Now There is a 2-year differential between them. That just blew my mind. I did not even think of that. I wonder if that will come into play somehow, or if they'll ever touch upon it at all.
The only way that I can think of that they were touching upon it this week was just by their relationship and just kind of how they are continuing to interact together and try and figure out like where they stand in their relationship. But as far as having that with the other team, they haven't yet made it clear that there's a 2-year differential between them, but it is interesting.
Yeah, no, actually that's a good point, that it really, you can see the relationship much more developed between them, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So yeah, I think that right now that's the only thing that's standing out. Mm-hmm. But still, what a great point, Jeremy. And I'm glad that you are back on board and, caught up on the show and still enjoying it and want to stick with it. So definitely, we'll come back. We're
glad to have you.
Yeah. Have you noticed that people are starting to call us by our names?
Yes, which, that's fine, because that always tends to happen. Yeah. I tend to forget, I know when I call for Aero Squad, to use their aliases instead of using their names, but yeah.
That's okay, we don't mind at all. So let's get on to the episode, because there's a few things we can cover in this. A few good points to talk about.
Just a couple,
a couple, yeah. I don't know if it'll be as in-depth as previous ones, but there's some things that stuck out to me. And right in the beginning, when Rip was telling Rory that he ordered Snart to deal with him, the look on Rory's face was almost surprised, like, what? It wasn't Snart's choice to leave me? So I think right in that moment in the opening scene, we saw a hint of a possible redemption in Rory, because there was that bit of realization he saw in his eyes that all this time he thought he was laying all the blame on Snart's shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I don't know that I picked up on that in his mannerisms per se, but I think that's definitely true, because you start to see that as the episode goes on, they continue to have these conversations. That's a good point.
I mean, I watched it twice, so I saw it both times, and it was just a minor, you saw him processing what he was just told, so.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then, I just have a couple funny points in the beginning here, that when Rip was describing the mission or the future and what's going on and everything, he goes into that kind of storage room and he's looking for something. Mm-hmm. And here we are in 2147, everything is all futuristic tech and, spacey and really cool looking, and he goes into some very plain Jane Walmart looking Tupperware to get something. I'm like, that's not very futuristic looking.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that. I just saw him rummaging through bins, and I was like, okay, what is this guy even looking for? Which you see later, but that's pretty funny.
I just kind of chuckled at that. That was weird. I would have expected much more futuristic looking containers than typical old Rubbermaid.
Hey, you gotta put your foot down somewhere when it comes to the budget. I mean, apparently storage containers are where they draw the line.
Yeah, maybe. That's probably it. Well, I don't know. Are we going to go on? I got one more point, but maybe I'll bring it up later, but we could get into storyline stuff now if you want.
Yeah, well, I think this next one, it'll fit in with a couple points that we have later, but,
okay.
So I kind of tried to break these down into storylines this time around, just because of the way that the episode went. There were definitely some distinct little storylines that you could pick up on. So we've got the main storyline that we're going to tackle first, and it's everything that revolves around stopping Vandal Savage yet again, and this Per Degaton tyrant that we're introduced to. And so, I mean, the overall goal is we're supposed to find him. We need to understand how he comes to power through this Per Degaton guy, kid, whatever. And then if they stop this, then he won't rise to power. So it's like, okay. All right. And then right away they kind of set the scene for us, set the world up for us, which I thought was really interesting. And so I guess this is kind of maybe their take on where our world is headed, but because everything is falling apart and there's just too many people. And so of course Vandal Savage's answer is genocide, and that's what will ultimately let him take over the world.
Yeah, now that, for me, this is a huge, huge point. It's a real world issue right now that people do talk about, but on a political, global kind of scale, it's really hush-hush.
Yep.
Because our world's population right now is already at a critical mass. We're already suffering and struggling, feeding everybody and having space for everybody. And it's a big thing. It's something that I love to talk about and I love to get into with just people at work and stuff. And just the idea of needing to cull humans is a real idea. It's a real theory. It's a real possibility that it's something that you question that governments are already doing. These might sound like conspiracy theories, but these are things that I've read articles on and things I've just talked with people about. And just ideas of the governments forcing us to eat low quality food, which has no nutrients in it, which shortens our lifespan so that people don't live as long, so they don't have to take care of us as long, or pensions or retirement or whatever, all those different reasons. They're forcefully shortening our lifespan. There's theories of disease release to help thin out populations, and you can name any disease out there that you want. There's conspiracy theories or even real theories of them releasing a disease to thin out the population, and then they slowly release the cure. There's procedures for that. It's unsettling, but in a very weird, strange way. And I'm just I don't want to make myself sound like a Vandal Savage type of person, but if you really pull yourself out of being a human being and you look at the world as a global scale, one day that type of idea might be necessary when you look at how many people there are and where it could lead. We're outgrowing our own food supply, and we're outgrowing the land that we live on.
Yeah, and it's that last point right there is kind of key because they're so intertwined. The more people we have, the more space we need, the more land we take over, but the more land we take over, the less space we have to grow food, actual, real, organic food, and not, eat crap out of a box that, big corporations are telling us is what's the best thing to eat for us, when really it's just the cheapest, most easily, cost-effective thing for them to make and sell and force people to eat. There's a reason that carbs or sugar is plastered all over everywhere. It's cheap, it's easy to manufacture, and we buy it.
Harley, we could go on for a 3-hour podcast. We need to stop. Yeah, because this is something that's, like I said, it's a really big deal to me. And we could talk about this forever. But to bring it back to the show, I found it really awesome and interesting that the show would tackle this type of an issue and present it in a futuristic setting, that this is where we're at now. We need to thin out the human population or the world's in trouble. And, of course, the bad guys resort very quickly to, hey, let's wipe them all out.
Yep.
And start over kind of thing, and just let the very select few, rich and powerful, kind of repopulate the world. It was an amazing issue to tackle. Aside from what we heard in Jeremy's voicemail, instead of tackling racism, sexism, and all that, they tackled something that is possibly in our future.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the show. I like the way that they play with different things like that, and they look at the state of the world, or the state that the world was in or is in or could be in, and it's always pretty plausible, because that was what struck me the most about this. As I sat here and I'm like, 2147, not that far in the future, not completely implausible that this exact thing would happen given the way our current society is.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the things I really liked about the episode.
Yeah. That was, I think, the overarching storyline or kind of hidden in between everything storyline. And yeah, it's what kept me really gripped to what they're trying to tell us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So from that...
Going to the next point here.
All
right. Well, so I found this interesting, and it brings up a couple questions and a lot of kind of developments within our characters that I liked. And so we noticed their plan is to kidnap Per Degaton because...
Okay, let me interrupt you for a second. That name is driving me crazy. What, Per Degaton? Is that a two-part name? Like his last name is Degaton?
Yeah.
And his first name is Per. It's just, every time I listen, I had to keep listening. How are they saying that? How are they pronouncing that? And then when I'm trying to take my notes...
at some point. That's how I figured it out, finally.
Okay, because I had to, when I was writing my own notes down to put in our show notes, I'm like, I don't know how to spell this name. I don't even know what it is.
Oh yeah, your Google Glass scene, that's how you, that's when you see the name Per Degaton.
Oh.
That's how I finally figured out what they were saying.
Okay, so I didn't even catch that. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, so the next thing that they do is after much discussion, they decide that they're going to kidnap this Per Degaton character instead of kill him. Because they don't want to kill a child, which totally respectable, even though he's an evil little scumball.
Oh,
but,
yes.
But anyway, I found it interesting that kidnapping him didn't change the timeline. So even without him there, Vandal Savage is still going to rise to power. So I don't think that killing him would have really made a difference at all. And so I think that was kind of a key thing for our characters to come to grips with, is that, okay, kidnapping him didn't work, and then they're like, okay, so we have to kill him? And it's like, no, killing him's really not good. I don't think killing him would have made a difference either, because either way, he's not in the timeline, so how would killing him change anything?
Yeah, it was weird because they decide to either kill him or kidnap him, and kidnapping him didn't work, and he goes on and does the same thing, only although we're jumping ahead to the end of the episode, it advanced the timeline faster because they didn't kill him. Mm-hmm. Now, if they would have, I think it was Rip that asked Gideon, if we kill him, what happens? And Gideon kind of says Savage still continues to take over the world and destroy the world, whatever. So I think that's where we get our notion that getting rid of the kid is not going to help any at all.
Yeah, whether they kidnap him or kill him, it's not going to make a difference. It doesn't matter if they completely remove him, if they stick him in a random time, if they kill him, whatever. He's not there, but it doesn't matter at this point.
Well, and that kind of comes back to your opening monologue that a lot of things happening throughout the episode ended up not meaning a damn thing by the time we got to the end.
That is true. There are a lot of things that we learned early on, and a lot of conversations that happen, and the first time you watch it, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And then 30 minutes later, you get the resolution, and you're like, oh, okay. It just was kind of a letdown on some of these for me. But
you have felt all this emotion, and then it was for naught.
For nothing, exactly.
Yeah, I get you there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, coming back to this, when they were arguing over killing him or trying to find a different way, this is where I thought Stein shines yet again as the voice of conscience amongst the group. Because and I thought it was one of the most powerful lines of dialogue in the episode when he says to Rip, he's like, killing Per Degaton would be like Savage killing your son. Mm-hmm. There's no difference. You killing this kid is going to be no different than what Savage did to your son. And to me, that was just like a slap in the face, like, holy Rip, get it together. Why are you even thinking of this idea? You're no better than Savage at this moment right now.
No, and Stein, he points that out later when Rip disappears with Per Degaton and they think he's going to kill him. I mean, Stein's like, but he doesn't see this as killing him. He sees it, he doesn't see, I forget the exact way he said it, but basically he says he considers this an act of saving someone's life, not taking someone's life.
Yeah.
Because he's saving his son's life by getting rid of this other kid. So it's like one for the other.
There was a small part of Rip's argument in killing him, though, that I do agree with, and it doesn't mean I'm some crazy child killer. It's just his reasoning behind it was like, guys, he may be a kid right now, but he becomes the person that annihilates 1 billion people. He wipes out the Earth's population.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference in killing him now as a kid or, like, I can't argue with where he's coming from on that point. It's like, we are stopping genocidal maniac.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you there either.
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue with that, with his reasoning.
It's a very interesting moral conundrum.
Yeah.
Can you kill a child, even though you know who this child is going to become? You know what I mean?
Like you said, would you kill Hitler in his cradle?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like.
Yeah, would you?
Because
Could you do it?
We all think right now, yeah, we would. It's Hitler. Of course we would. Look what he did. And then you show up at that cradle and there's a little crying baby. You're gonna hesitate.
Yeah. It's like, could you do that? An innocent baby? Could you?
Yeah.
Think about that again.
Exactly. I mean, and then coming to this kid, when Rip has him out by the lake there, and Rip's trying to reason with him and talk to him, and the performance by this kid, holy cow, did he take me by surprise on how vicious and already so far gone down the dark path with Savage. The performance was just amazing.
It was great on both sides. I really enjoyed the way Arthur Darvill played. I enjoyed the speech. I enjoyed his performance, and the same with the person that was playing Per Degaton. And it was a great scene overall. It was very well done. I really did like that. But I mean, but here's another important thing though that we learn through this whole interaction is that reasoning with him isn't gonna work either because we see what he's already become. And so you're like, yeah, it's like, okay, well, we can't kill him. We've already kind of let him go. I guess Rip could have overpowered him and brought him back, but he's seen that kidnapping him doesn't make a difference. So he's like, well, I guess I'll try and reason with him. And we see later that it doesn't work. We have the feeling that it won't, but when you do see a little bit of a enlightening in his eyes when he says he's going to betray you. He's just using you. Right. As if he's telling him something he didn't already know. But then he still goes and kills his father and goes along with the plan. So I don't know. I thought I saw like a little glimmer there, but I guess not.
It's hard to say. I mean, he still is a kid and is evil and crazy and far gone as he already looked. He still only has the wisdom and experience of a kid. So I think Savage has already gotten to him and he has fully dove off the cliff, and no matter what, will believe and follow whatever Savage says. So
yeah, no, I definitely agree. Should we finish this out real quick, or we talk about? I mean, because Per Degaton, he then goes and he kills his father, and so then that allows Vandal Savage to become his proxy and thus rule the world. And because that he's killed his father 5 years earlier, they released the virus because Savage is already in power. So basically this is what I was talking about when I felt like we went all this way just to completely and utterly fail in a really big way. We just increased the timeline by 5 years. We can mark that. We know exactly what would have happened and now what does happen.
So 21, instead of 2166, it should be 2161 now that he will take over?
I guess. So how does this play in with killing Jonas and Miranda?
See,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, see, interesting point you bring up, because all we know is that they released the virus 5 years earlier, and...
Right, sorry, they released the virus. That doesn't mean he comes to power yet, right?
No, it kind of does, because, remember, Savage walks into the meeting room again, and he says, Mr. Degaton is now dead. The kid succeeds him, but he is too young to basically have any sway in anything, so he's asked me to speak in his place. Thus, right. Savage has his power right there. At least the beginning of it, anyway.
Right, yeah, and so did that increase the timeline even more? Is he now considered...
I think so.
Since it's 5 years earlier and Per Degaton is not of age to take over, so now Savage is quote-unquote in power. I mean, he's never going to release that. He's never going to give it up to Per Degaton. For all we know, he's already had the boy killed.
Yeah, you're bringing up some...
We never do see him.
This discussion is bringing up some points that we did not think of when we were writing our notes. So this is...
this is why it's good. This is why I like the discussion, because we think of good things as we talk.
This is interesting because, how much does this change affect the way the future actually happens? Because in the original timeline, Per Degaton releases the virus when he's older and in power, slaughters the world, and then it basically paves the way for Savage to walk in with his army and kill whatever is left and take over.
Yeah.
So now that Savage is more in charge, Per Degaton is too young to do anything. How does that affect it? Is it maybe Savage is who releases the virus and kills it, or maybe he just makes it happen himself and he kills Per Degaton anyway. Maybe it's as simple as that.
Yeah, so it depends on how many people were on board with his call to release the virus, because he was advocating that at the shareholders meeting in the beginning, but it was the father, his Mr. Degaton. I think his first name was Tor Degaton, but he did not. He was against it, and he's like, no, I don't know if he's like, I guess he's CEO. I guess he's the majority shareholder.
He
so
was
if
kind
he
of
says,
the leader, it looked like, yeah.
Yeah, so if he says no, then it really doesn't happen, kind of thing. So now, since Vandal Savage says yes, do they need a majority vote? Does it not matter? Does he just do it? I mean, either way, I think it's key that he doesn't, and he doesn't have to convince Per Degaton to now do it. He just is in power and he does it himself.
It'd be interesting to see if they show us, if Rip then asks Gideon, what does the future look like now? And she, because she's been able to show him projected footage of what it is going to look like now. I wonder if he asks her, what's going to happen now? And we get to see a new altered future timeline. That would be cool.
That would be cool. Yeah. I would be very interested to see if that happens.
What's our next point? Are we finishing off with Per Degaton?
Per Degaton. That's funny.
I think I'm
going to call him Megatron from now on.
I'll just call him Megatron.
There you go.
All right. Reeling this back in, Harley, we're definitely finding awesome things to talk about, but we're getting carried away here.
Yeah, we're turning into Tangent Cast ourselves over here.
What?
But
we're dancing with the 1 hour timeline is what we're doing.
Yeah, we're trying. We'll just have to see. But
so you had a point, because bringing back to your opening thing when I had no idea what you're talking about, this Oedipus something or other.
Oedipus. I always say Oedipus. I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but Oedipus Rex. It is a relatively famous Greek play that most people had to read. I know I did in either middle school or high school. It's part of a trilogy, but this is the first one. And basically the gist of it is, this guy named Oedipus, he unknowingly kills his father, who was the king. He didn't know he was the king, and he killed him. And so then he ends up marrying the queen, who turns out to be his mother. But he doesn't know that this is his father and mother, because they abandoned him as a child. Because basically a prophecy said that the son would grow up to kill the father. Right. And so the prophecy fulfills itself. He becomes king, and at the end of the day finds out everything that happened. So
that would mess you up. You married your mom.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of how Vandal Savage was basically trying to get Per Degaton to, I guess, kill his father. I mean, the term Oedipal complex is derived from the basically the main point of this play, but it just means that you see a family member of the same sex as you as your rival, and then you have more love for a family member who is the opposite sex of you. And so that's kind of how Vandal Savage is trying to get Per Degaton to kill his father ultimately and let him wrest power.
Welcome to Harley's class of learning again.
Welcome. Welcome to my lair. Or my psychiatry office, one of the two.
Oh, that's super interesting. I didn't know anything about that, other than I think I've seen that story play out in some Greek mythology movie somewhere sometime.
There is a movie called, I think it's called Oedipus Rex. It's your knowledge for the day.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Thanks for that learning.
Anytime. All right. Any other points on this main storyline here before we move into?
I think we're going to move into in the next part. We got a couple other things we can talk about for sure.
Okay. Well, where do you want to start?
Well, just something kind of in the middle. I guess it went through the entire episode, but I really enjoyed the character interactions. this episode. Kind of like what I said in my opening statement. The dialogue was so well written between everybody that each one-on-one scene that we got was so moving and touching and dramatic. And I mean, as an example, like Sarah and Rory in the beginning there, what a good scene between them. The silent understanding between the two of them. They didn't have to say a lot, but they seemed to get each other. Mm-hmm. And it was just with the words that they chose to say, they understood each other immediately. And then with Rory's his parting piece of wisdom when he's like, killing a kid, not very hero-like.
I loved that.
I mean, it was really simple, but yet it sunk in deep, and you could see it on Sarah's face that he just hit a nerve with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's one example. And another example was Kendra and Ray throughout the episode. Their scenes together were very touching, and in this episode, it just sunk it in a little bit more that it's a very believable relationship that they have now because they have been together for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And we saw that has something that has developed between them. So every scene with them had that chemistry and that connection now.
It did, but in a way, it didn't this time because of the flashbacks that they introduced.
It was, the flashbacks were separating them.
Yeah, and so maybe let's just, since it kind of came up, let's jump into this section real quick and just kind of cover some of these flashbacks. But okay. I liked that they introduced Carter back in and that he's not just some random dude who's gone away. Like, they introduced that there needs to be a conflict there. She has this 4,000-year-old history with this man, and you can't just write that off.
Yeah, it was good to see him back. I mean, he looked so different. He was all clean shaven and dressed in a suit. He did not have the intimidating tough guy look anymore. He suited the era that they were in. But yeah. It was good to see him and to reconnect us to this burning love between them that has lasted the millennia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I liked that. And then it also, because they were flashing back to the time period when they had their son, and we've met the son in a previous episode, and
as a older man.
Yeah, and watched him die. But it just made me wonder, how many families have they actually had? Was he the only kid they ever had in 4,000 years?
I believe so. I believe when we first met him, I can't remember if that was the pilot episode, when we first met him, they did say something along those lines that this was the one time they took the chance on starting a family. And he is their only kid of 4,000 years. So and that's what I liked about this, the fact that we got to see some backstory to show more of their struggle.
Right.
And then instead of them always fighting Savage, because they now have the child, they now decide to keep on the run from him.
Right.
And it was great backstory, I thought. It brought us back to, this is where Kendra's from. And she has this connection to Carter, and she's not going to be able to ever let go of that. And that's what we saw kind of come up as a wedge between her and Ray.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's what led to a lot of these deeper conversations between the two of them, because they're both going through things. I mean, we can touch briefly, because I think we might get back to this later, but we can touch briefly just on why Ray ended up being so shaken, as he thought he had some child that he never even knew about. And then, it turns out it was his brother, not him, all along. But... Well,
yeah, that's at the very end, but up until that point, I really felt for Ray. Just realizing that he had a kid in 2016, first of all, to find out he had a kid they didn't know about, so he missed out on helping raise that kid, being a father, and it turns out that kid goes on to have, it leads to, at least at that point in time, he thinks that kid goes and continues his robotic technology, which eventually down the line of ancestry builds this army of robots to control the world in in a very different type of future. So the idea that he's thinking that if he hadn't left, he would have been a loving, caring father and he would have raised his son in a different way. How much would that have changed the world in the future if just that one thing of him being home for his kid?
It's the age-old question, nature versus nurture.
Yeah, so I felt for Ray. You could really see this weighing heavily on him, and it really touched a soft spot in me. I felt for the poor guy.
Yeah, no. I think I got jaded on my rewatch because I knew that none of that mattered.
Yeah.
And so it was, it kind of took it down a notch for me. But
I still focused on the actors' performances. That's what still drove it home for me.
They're great.
They were so good this episode. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that.
When he first finds out, I mean, imagine the feeling. First of all, we meet Jewel State. Yay.
I know.
Kaylee from Firefly, like I just jumped out of my seat. Oh my god, that's awesome. I haven't seen her in so long. I'm so happy to see her. But then when you find out she's the great-great-great-great-granddaughter of Ray, can you imagine being in that position? Because really, you should have been dead hundreds of years ago.
It's true.
Here you are meeting your great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter. How weird would that be? Holy cow, that would have been strange.
That'd been really weird. I do agree.
Yeah.
It would be a very strange feeling. I don't.
Of course, I said it in the beginning of our podcast here. I mean, my first thought, this is just a side note, my first thought when we first saw the flying robots, when they're just strolling down the street, and you see that purse snatcher run by, and then the robots fly in, my first initial reaction was, oh, cool, those look awesome. And then Ray comes to realization, that's my tech, that's my suit, wait, once that sunk in, I was like, hold on. What a rip-off of Iron Man. Oh, come on, guys. That was not very creative at all. And I got immediately I was like, man, guys, okay, no, yeah. So that's actually a minor. I could have saved that for a nitpick of the week, but anyway.
Yeah, no, that's all right. No, actually, from that scene, I got more of an iRobot feel than Iron Man.
Oh, yeah?
Because, I mean, normally the Atom suit, the same thing as the Iron Man suit, basically. But yeah, I got more of a iRobot feel from it. But when the robots turn evil and take over the world, even though that's a complete perversion of the book. But that's another story for another day.
We kind of come to, I think, what is the other heavy hitting part of the story is, what are we going to do with Rory? Can they redeem him?
Yeah, because no one thinks he can change at all. I mean, I'll just run through a couple of points here and, feel free to jump in. But,
yeah.
I mean, he basically says that Snart wusses out on killing him. He maroons him. And I think it's safe to say that he wasn't stashed in 2016. I don't know where he was stashed, but if it was in 2016, I feel like he would have been able to survive more easily.
Yeah.
Than what he describes.
But did Snart really wuss out? I mean, it's his friend, it's his buddy, it's been his partner for their entire life, pretty much.
Those were Mick Rory's words, not mine.
Okay, true. Okay, I thought you were talking from your own feelings.
Ew, that was a quote that was what Mick Rory said.
Okay.
He's like, he wussed out on killing me. That's how he sees it.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think it's more along the lines of what Sarah said, that it shows, how much he cares about you and his loyalty and his friendship and how important you are to him.
Yeah.
I agreed with everything that, she was saying in that scene, but from his perspective, he could have killed him and he didn't, and because he didn't, he got stuck there and he went through these horrible experiences and then got picked up by the Time Masters, and so he blames him.
It brings back to my point about the amazing character interactions. That this scene with Sarah and Rory, it was just a powerful moment between the two of them.
It was.
And, I mean, even with what she was saying, even though Rory wasn't accepting it, you could still see it was getting to him. The little tidbits were getting to him. Enough to the point when we get to the end, when they actually fight, he can't finish him off.
No, he can't. When it comes down to it, he can't kill him. He beats the crap out of him, but he can't actually finish the job.
Yeah. You kind of knew, I mean, when Snart was offering to resolve this with their fists, you're like, oh, okay, Heatwave's he's gonna beat you. You can't stand up to him. You're not as good a hand-to-hand fighter as he is.
And I think he knew that going in. I think he really was resigned to the fact. He's like, this is how we're gonna resolve it. He's either gonna kill me right here, right now, or we'll figure a way out of this and we'll move on.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what happened.
Now, this is part of my, I'm not really going to dive into too much because it's part of my nitpick, but what I I was a bit let down by this final resolution of their confrontation. I don't even know how you want to word it.
Before we move into that, I just want to say one thing about the score while we're on the Snart and Rory scene.
Yeah.
Because I noticed this, and in the background, like, it's a definite tick-tock, like a clock, like Chronos.
Okay,
So,
I didn't notice.
I noticed it right away. I was like, oh, that is so cool.
Now that's when Snart is on the outside of the cage and they're facing each other?
I don't remember if I think it might be at the beginning of the scene. It's within that scene.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a definite tick-tock to the score. And I thought that was fascinating, considering that, it sounded exactly like a clock, and he is Chronos. And I'm sure you could draw a lot of other parallels between time, time lost, love lost, all sorts of things. But I thought that was really cool. So if this is part of your nitpick, do you want to just move into nitpicks and we can start with the ending?
My nitpick is quite a big thing.
Okay.
It's just with this scene in particular. This was building up Snart and Rory having to deal with this between themselves. It's been quite a build up over a few episodes. I really wanted them to hash it out, whether it's a big long argument and a big fist fight. When they decided to go with the fist fight, it was too short and too it just got, I don't know. I was a little bit let down by it because I expected it to be a lot longer of an engagement for them to work through all of this, because it's a lot of build-up. I mean, especially for Rory, who's gone through lifetimes of training and waiting for this moment.
That's the other TikTok tie-in right there.
Yeah, it was just a little lackluster in finally them confronting each other. Although, I mean, maybe Snart couldn't stand up to him very long, mano a mano, but yeah, I was just, like I said, I wanted a little bit more. I would like to have seen a good portion of the episode delegated to them two dealing with this, because they have so much history together.
Yeah, but I think at the same time it was important for them to work out certain things on their own, and then in the end kind of deal with it in their way. You know what I mean?
Okay, sure. Well, Harley, I think after dealing with this episode really had it had two really big storylines, and then just a lot of all the little interactions and things going on in between amongst the characters.
Right, yeah.
So, I think we've covered everything, and that brings us to the nitpick of the week.
Form of water.
All right, I'll go first because I think mine's a little bit shorter and it's very specific. So my nitpick was the scene where Rip, he kidnaps Per Degaton and they have him in a ship or whatever hooked up to, they've knocked him out with whatever blue fluid flows through that little IV thing. And so I know that they wanted to make the scene more dramatic, and this is why they did it, but it drove me crazy that he's, like walking around, like eyeing this kid with scissors. Mm-hmm. And, it's like he's debating, should I kill him? Should I not kill him? Should I kill him? Should I not kill him? And then he just cuts the, IV cord. I'm like, you could have just slipped the thing off of his wrist. It was really dumb to me. It stuck out. And so that bothered me. That's my nitpick.
Because you just wanted them, what was all the build-up of the scissors and I'm going to stab them?
It was just ridiculous. The only reason they did that was for a dramatic response, because they wanted to make us think that he was going to kill him right then and there. And then he, snips the thing as if that's what he was going to do all along. I was like, that was dumb. He should have just slipped it off his wrist. We all know he's not going to kill him.
Good point.
I don't know.
Fair enough.
I got under my skin. I didn't like that one.
And you're allowed to have that nitpick. That's your pick. So mine's a little bit more grand.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. What I found is this episode was awesome. Right up until roughly the last 7-ish minutes. Why? Because it was a case of telling a great story with drama, emotion, action, everything of a good movie, then realizing that you're out of time and you have to wrap it all up suddenly, so we get a very rushed ending sequence of events. So many movies have done this. They build up this great big story, and then it's like, oh crap, we're at an hour and a half, we've got to end it fast. Mm-hmm. And that's what I found with this episode. And hear me out, because this is how it goes. It's a great episode. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, almost at the end. Quick. Kid kills father. Rip wonders if he did the right thing. Snart and Rory have a fight for 10 seconds. Then suddenly Rory is on the bridge explaining that the hunters, who the hell are they? Where'd they come from? Are after them, and done. Credits. What? Wait. What happened? Is Rory suddenly redeemed and part of the team again? Ugh. What a rush job that was in the final few minutes. Like, it just ruined the fantastic story and build-up we had.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think that's where the episode fell apart for me as well. Mostly because, I mean, it was a little rushed. I didn't feel the fight as much on a rush quite as you did, but everything else did feel like a rush. Then all of a sudden Rory's out there talking and he's like, well, I'm dead. We're all dead. And he's like, the hunters are after us. And I'm like, what? Why? What? I don't even understand. I don't even understand how this gets us to next week. I don't even understand why this needed to be in here. That's where they lost me. And I think that's why part of why this episode was a 7.
Well, and the episode for me was a 10 up until that point, and I dropped it 2 marks because of that last sequence.
Yeah.
It's just...
I don't think I was quite at a 10 throughout the whole thing, but then that last sequence, I was just like, what? And I'm not going to say anything about the trailer, because I know a lot of people don't watch it and they don't want to know.
Including me.
I know, but I will just say this. Given that ending and then where they show you're going, it's like, what? How? Why? What? Doesn't even make sense.
Because it didn't end with anything. It didn't end with any inclination as to where they're going. It's just...
It just says run.
What are we going to do?
Seriously?
You need to run. Okay.
I'm like, okay, because that worked whenever they were trying to run from you in the first place, Kronos.
Yeah. But so to bring it back, I mean, do you understand my nitpick? It was unsatisfying. So, Harley, we have, due to last week's episode, we had one of our listeners give us a very cool idea, and we're going to try it this week.
Yes, we are going to try it. So we are introducing Quote of the Week.
Shape out an eagle!
Quote of the Week, Harley. This is going to be fun. So we're going to, we've made a list of quotes that we both liked, and we're going to narrow it down. And what did you want to do with those, Harley?
Well, I'd say we create a poll and stick them on Facebook and let people vote for them, and then whichever quote wins, we can play it at the beginning of next week's show.
Okay.
Or at the beginning of this segment. That might make more sense.
The beginning of the segment from the next week.
Yeah, so we'll introduce Quote of the Week with the winner from the previous week, and then we'll go into our new quotes for people to vote on.
Okay. So we will read a quote that we like, and then I will play it so you can actually hear how it was said in the episode. And then once we go through them all, we'll post the poll and people can vote what one they like the best.
Sounds good.
So we have the power because we get to pick the initial ones to put in the pool they have to choose from.
Exactly.
All right, Harley. So we've got our quotes lined up, and quote number 1 is when Jax and Sarah are predicting what Dr. Stein is going to say when they get him to the future city. Here it is.
The future, it's
Astonishing.
fascinating.
Well, the 50-50 chance which one you choose.
Actually, I was going to say remarkable.
And there we go. Quote number 1. What's number 2?
And the next one is when Ray is trying to come to terms with kidnapping a child.
Great. Gone from infanticide to child abduction. Progress.
Progress indeed.
All right. I'll let you say number 3.
It is probably one of my favorite ones simply because it came from Snart. But these are his comments about gymnastics class.
Are you telling me future Hitler is enrolled in a gymnastics class?
I just love that. I love it.
Harley, I have a feeling that every time we include a Snart quote, it's going to be the front runner.
You're probably not wrong.
So,
the one with Stein is pretty great.
That's true. We might have to just string together the best Snart quotes. It might evolve into that. All right, and we got one last one. Number 4 is when Rory is in his cell and everybody keeps coming in to talk to him.
It's almost funny how you guys keep parading in here like it's some kind of confessional or something.
It's another good one.
I like that one, but yes.
There are a lot of good quotes. It was very, very difficult to narrow it down.
It was, and we're going to have that trouble, I think, from week to week. But there you go. There's your 4 quotes. Harley will post a poll on the Facebook page, and you guys can vote, and we'll play the winning one at the start of Quote of the Week segment next week.
Yay!
Yay! Now, that's kind of wrapping us up. We have a little bit of feedback from our friend who is now the sole owner of the title. What kind of title did we give her?
I don't know.
Most what was that?
Most frequent contributor? I don't know.
Most frequent contributor, most consistent contributor. Week after week, she's been staying with us. Anyway, Kelly, the master wordsmith, we got an email from her about this week's episode, and here is our feedback.
23 powers, activate!
Take her away, Harley.
All right. So Kelly writes in, Ray and Kendra sitting on the Waverider, K-I-S-S-I-N-G. I'm not going to keep singing, but first comes their past lives, then comes acceptance, then comes love, but what does the future hold? Okay, they're growing on me. Who would have thought Ray has a twin brother? Will we see him on Arrow? Okay, pause. Is that really supposed to be his twin? He has a twin brother? She just said it was his brother.
Yeah, I don't know where the twin part is coming from, but...
Other than that the bust looked identical to him.
That's what I'm thinking, is the bust looked exactly like him, so you're, I guess, just coming to the conclusion that it's a twin.
Okay. All right. Kelly continues. Sarah, no matter what time period we are in, she is always a kick-ass warrior. Rory and Snart's bromance is a little black and blue, but it's back on and the team is finally gelling. Another episode or two and they will be a fine-oiled machine. Then watch out, Vandal. They'll finally be able to beat you. I am not going to read the next part because it's from the trailer. So, sorry, Kelly, I am going to have to edit your final line here in your email. We try not to talk about the trailers because, like we said, not everybody watches them, and I don't know if everyone's caught up on Arrow, so I don't want to throw anything out there that might give people ideas or potentially spoil anything. So, in closing, Kelly says, see you in the funny pages. Kelly, a.k.a. Master Wordsmith.
Cool. Well, thanks, Kelly, again, for sticking with us week after week. That was pretty funny. I could picture you singing that opening bit like the kids' poem or whatever that is. That was kind of funny.
I know. I tried my best to do it some justice, but...
But yeah, Ray's twin brother on Arrow. Interesting. I mean, nothing we've been seeing on Legends has affected Flash or Arrow at all, so I don't know if that'll ever come to pass. But I love your little writing, Rory and Snart's bromance, a little black and blue.
That was great. It's
hence the master wordsmith. You're living up to your namesake there. Pretty sweet.
Well, that's the end of our feedback section.
That's all we got this week, guys, and hopefully, it's
totally
just people are busy and stuff. We really, really want to hear from you and love hearing from you because that's half of the fun of the podcast, is getting to interact with you guys. So definitely get on board with us and talk to us, call us, voicemail us, email us, whatever.
Yeah. If you want to join in the discussion, you can submit feedback via email to cybercastfan@gmail.com. That's SIBERCASTFAN. Just to spell it out. We ask that you submit all feedback by 8 p.m. Eastern on Fridays following the show. You can also join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends. No apostrophes, just Tomorrow's Legends. And you can follow us on Twitter at Cybercast. Again, that's SIBERCAST. And all of these details and more can be found on our website, Tomorrow's Legends, all one word, .libsyn, LIBSYN.com. And you can subscribe there in iTunes, download episodes, leave comments about each of the shows. And hey, while you're out there in iTunes, why don't you leave us a rating and a review?
Yes, please, because that's fun too, to find out what you guys think. Well, Harley, that is it for us. This episode left us not knowing what's going on. So we don't even know what we're going to lead into, story-wise, but hey, we got a few more to go. It's straight on out to the finale for us, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with Heatwave now that he is or isn't possibly back on the team.
I know. I'm really excited to see where they go with that. So,
is there anything else that you're curious about?
I'm curious about lots of things, but let's just see how it plays out.
All right. Sounds good. We'll leave it at that then. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have yourselves a good weekend and a good first half of next week. We'll talk to you in 7. Flash is out.
And this is Harley Quinn. I'm out.